The occupied southern cities of Ukraine, Crimea and the Russian city of Krasnodar in the south, and the cities of Bryansk, Belgorod, Kursk, and Rostov-on-Don in the west, form the main supply lines of the Russian army and feed the Russian army. Ukraine had to cut the lines feeding the Russian army as a preview of the all-out counteroffensive. Unmanned aerial vehicles and powerful long-range missiles belonging to Kiev took action to wipe out Russian logistics, ammunition depots, oil facilities, and Russian formations in these areas. That's why Ukrainian forces simultaneously hit the ports, fuel depots, Russian positions, and arsenals in both Berdyansk, Mariupol, and Krasnodar this week. In addition, the cities of Belgorod and Rostov were also under heavy Ukrainian air attack. As Ukraine's mighty storm shadows roar over the ports of Mariupol and Berdyansk, Russian army assets, arsenals, and even ships were damaged. Thus, Ukrainian forces disrupted the main Russian logistics line in southern Ukraine. Now there was the starting point of the Russian main supply line for Ukraine. Ukraine knew that for this it had to turn to southern Russia. Krasnodar is at the other end of the Kerch Bridge, connecting Crimea to Russia. The city is at the head of the main supply line feeding the Russian army in Crimea and Ukraine. The Russian army sends soldiers, ammunition, war vehicles, and fuel to the Crimea and other fronts via Krasnodar. In Krasnodar, the Russian supply lines are the Kerch Bridge for both the railway and the road. Fuel and supplies are transported to the occupied Mariupol and Berdyansk ports for the sea route from strategic points such as Taman Port, Novorossiysk Port, and Tuapse Port. In other words, Krasnodar is one of the most strategic points feeding both Crimea and the Russian army. The position of Krasnodar makes it the primary target of Ukraine. For this reason, Krasnodar was unable to evade the Ukrainian airstrikes. Krasnodar, once Russia's most prosperous city, is now trembling with the winds of war. Earlier yesterday, drones attacked the Afipsky oil refinery in Russia's Krasnodar Krai. Dramatic footage of flames reaching the skies at a Russian oil refinery has surfaced online, after Russian authorities reported that the country had carried out a drone attack on 2 oil facilities in the Krasnodar region. Huge flames were seen in the videos showing the fire at the Afipsky facility. The governor of the region, Veniamin Kondratyev, wrote on Telegram that a drone attacked the Afipsky oil refinery in southwestern Russia during the night, causing a fuel distillation unit to catch fire. The fire broke out in an area of 100 square meters. The fire was extinguished as a result of the efforts of the emergency teams who came to the scene. The Afipsky oil refinery is located in the south of Russia, not far from the Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. The port of Novorossiysk was the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet until the annexation of Crimea in 2014. Since then, Russia has transferred the headquarters to the occupied port city of Sevastopol. A second incident was also reported by the Russian authorities at the Ilsky refinery at around 4 a.m. local time on the same day. A major fire also occurred at the Ilsky oil refinery, about 55 kilometers northeast of Novorossiysk. Local officials claim that a drone attack also caused the fire. Russian officials stated on social media that an unmanned aerial vehicle had crashed into the facility and stated that there was no material damage, loss of life, or fire. Russian officials added that the fallen apparatus was destroyed with explosives around 9:20 local time for security reasons. These attacks and explosions are not the first in the city of Krasnodar, which connects Crimea to Russia. Last month, drone attacks on the Ilsky refinery on May 4th and May 5th were also reported by Russian authorities. The attacks caused fires at the facility. In recent weeks, there has been increasing reports of attacks on rail networks and oil refineries on Russian soil. Drone attacks were also reported in various regions of Russia, including the oil unit of the Druzhba pipeline refinery in the Tver region. The attacks were also touted as a flare of Ukraine's upcoming major offensive. The most striking of these attacks was the massive explosions in Crimea. As is known, Crimea is critical for Moscow's control over the occupied territories in southern and eastern Ukraine, and plays a role in the supply of Russian troops. An oil tank in the Cossack Bay in Sevastopol, the target of the first attack in Crimea, turned into a blazing inferno. Regarding the first attack in the Cossack Bay in Sevastopol, the Ukrainian Military Secret Service claims that 10 oil tanks with a capacity of 40,000 tons were rendered unusable in the attack. This figure is a very serious loss for Russia. The second airstrike alarmed the Kremlin even more. The target of the second airstrike was the port of Taman, near the strategically important Kerch Strait Bridge connecting Russia with Crimea. An oil storage tank caught fire in the village of Volna near the port of Taman. Volna is Russia's only land link with the illegally annexed Crimean Peninsula. Also, this city is located near the Kerch Strait Bridge, which is an important supply route for Russian forces in the midst of the ongoing war in Ukraine. Therefore, this situation may disrupt the connection and logistics of Crimea and Ukraine for Russia. Meanwhile, Russia's Black Sea port of Taman is preparing to suspend exports of highly explosive liquefied petroleum gas over concerns over drone attacks. Railway operators in Russia and Kazakhstan have already announced their plans to restrict cargo shipments to Taman, which accounts for about 7.5% of Russia's total LPG exports. 3 sources with direct knowledge of the situation stated that Taman will suspend the transportation of LPG, also known as propane and butane, due to the explosive nature of the fuel. Sources did not specify when the port will stop LPG handling, and stated that existing stocks will be shipped first. 2 of the sources reported that LPG operations at the Taman Transit Complex, which has a cargo capacity of 20 million tons per year, will be suspended indefinitely. Taman Neftegaz, the operator of the Taman Transit Complex, which also handles crude oil and petroleum products, did not respond to a request for comment. According to the available data, railroad LPG supply to Taman, one of the suppliers of Russia and Kazakhstan, amounted to 192,000 tons in January through May. Last year, the complex shipped 328,000 tons of Russian and Kazakh LPG. Sources stated that for now the complex is handling LPG loads from stocks at the port. Other market sources claim that they are examining other routes to export LPG from Russia, including Poland and China. Concerns over drone attacks on Russian infrastructure are the latest example of how the conflict in Ukraine affects energy supply, and how dependent Russia is on security in the Black Sea, where it sends fuel to world markets. On the other hand, an important logistics and supply center providing supplies to Russian troops is at the focal point of the attacks in Berdyansk. The long-range attack hit the Russian-held port city in the Sea of Azov. The attack on Berdyansk is another example of Ukraine's ability to hit Russian targets far beyond the front lines. An official said that the Russian-occupied port city of Berdyansk was hit by a Ukrainian missile the other day. Berdyansk, about 96 kilometers from the front lines, is the latest example of long-range targets that Ukraine can now hit thanks to donated weapons. This is at least the 4th attack on the port city in recent weeks. Following this latest attack, a Russian-deployed official said that the attack was carried out by Storm Shadow air-launched cruise missiles supplied by the United Kingdom. It seems that Ukraine's attacks targeting important supply lines will gain momentum. These attacks will wear out Russian logistics a lot.